Good morning to all who help feed and clothe the world, and welcome to this edition of In the Loop Weekend Ag Talk, brought to you by Alphen Insurance Agency. We hope this is the best quick update that you watch all week for things related to crop insurance and agriculture. In each edition of In the Loop Weekend Ag Talk, we like to take you behind the scenes and let you meet one of the team members who help serve you. We also will take a quick dive into the way markets finished up for the week and look at local, state, U.S., and world news as it relates to crop insurance and agriculture. Let's look at the markets for mid-afternoon on Friday. Looks like December corn is down just a tad from last week at 683. December wheat holds steady at 853. December cotton had another week of falling off and right now is sitting at 72.11. November soybeans down just a tad from last week at 1388. When we look into the local news, open enrollment for ARC and PLC has begun and will be open until March 15th. Please see your FSA office representative to make your designations for 2023. Follow up from last week talking about carrying costs for grain. Had a few folks call in, send messages, and tell us that they wanted a little clearer breakdown and maybe a visual of what I was talking about. Last week we discussed the cost of carrying your grain a few extra months versus selling today and paying down your operating note. When you look at the example on the screen, try to make it a little simple for you. Pick the 1,000-acre grower who has 500 acres of corn, 500 acres of soybeans. Had an average yield this year, so he ended up with 67,500 bushels of corn, held over 20,000 bushels of soybeans. We assumed a price of $6.25 on the corn and $13 on the soybeans. The operating line of credit for this operation, you'll see in yellow here, is $550,000 for the year. Now, when you look at the grid down at the bottom where you see the Excel chart, it shows a per year, per month, and per day cost. When you look at a 3% interest on operating note, 5% or 7% here, you see a difference in $16,500 annually for a 3% note versus $38,500 annually for a 7% note. Huge difference. Folks, you have to look at your operation and decide what's right for you, but with interest rates continuing to climb up, it may be advantageous to you to consider possibly not holding on to grain this year and paying that note down so you will not be paying as much interest for the year. If we can help you with this in any way, just give us a call and we'll look into your operation with you. I thought this week we'd throw in a little trivia for around the state here, some things that are going on, and reading a book called Standing Their Ground. It talks about small farmers in North Carolina since the Civil War. It brought up some interesting prices from Duplin County, North Carolina from 1919 versus 1920. Looking at cotton in 1919, 35 cents a pound. 1920 really dropped down, was only 15 cents a pound the next year. Very similar with tobacco price, went from 39 cents a pound in 1919 to 21 cents a pound in 1920. Very interesting to look back a little over 100 years and see how things changed. They said that this was the beginning of small farmers beginning to use merchant credit. Really began to grow at this time because the cost of doing business and the low commodity prices were so tough that folks had to reach out and find other ways of credit, and they went to the merchants to do this. In other news in the state fair ended up, and the livestock junior sale of champions ended up netting over $212,000 that'll be used for youth agriculture scholarships. Congratulations to all who participated in the fair. In other state news, the map has been released for the Hurricane Ian HIP wind index policy there. Brunswick, Columbus, and Robeson County all triggered for this coverage in North Carolina, as well as you can see other counties that were affected in South Carolina and Florida there. Again, folks, this is still the best option that you can purchase to protect your crops and your financial interest here in the Carolinas. Seeing as that about every 6 out of 10 years we are affected by hurricane winds in this viewing area here. Now it's time for a break. We're going to go behind the scenes this week, and we're going to talk with Miss Dana Turnage. Dana resides here in Duplin County, and she has been with Alphen Insurance for a little over 15 years as an agent assistant. Dana enjoys cooking, shopping, fishing, boat riding, and the beach. Dana had zero farming or agriculture experience prior to coming to Alphen Insurance Agency, and now she does an excellent job for us, has learned many things about our industry, as well as she spends some of her free time working with tractor pools. Dana, what have you got going on this week?
Thank you, Brian. Good morning, everybody. This week I am working on wrapping up fall changes and new applications, which are our wheat and oats policies. I am also working on gathering any wheat history for the new policies and entering wheat production from 2022 for our existing insureds. The other thing I'm working on is updating our in-house standard operating procedures, which is kind of what keeps us on track for everything we do throughout the year. Back to you, Brian.
Thank you, Dana. Now let's look at some U.S. news. You'll see the latest U.S. drought monitor map on the screen that was released on October 18th. And as you see, the drought continues to worsen in the U.S., including parts of our viewing area here. U.S. ag highlights for the week. Harvest slowed down a little due to some much needed showers in the Midwest, but corn's at 68% harvested, cotton 45%, peanuts around 68% harvested, and soybeans are making good time at 80% harvest. When you look at winter wheat, there's close to 80% is in the ground with about 50% of it emerged. Corn exports are still lagging in the U.S. However, China did make a few purchases this week, and soybean exports remain strong. This slide here shows the 2-year U.S. Treasury rate. If you look at the red arrow at the bottom left, that shows right when we were coming out of COVID, stimulus checks were being issued, interest rates were lowered, encouraging people to get out and spend. If you follow the chart across, where it begins to climb is January of this year, up to now, where the big area is on the right. Interest rates on 2-year Treasury notes at this time were at 4.49 when I printed this slide. This shows how rapidly interest rates have been raised by the Fed, trying to slow down inflation that we're seeing here in the U.S. I really like this next slide. It looks at 50 years of U.S. inflation versus interest rates. It starts back in the early 70s, around the time the oil crisis was going on. You'll see the big red circle. This is when interest rates reached close to 20%. Folks were having a tough time paying around 18% interest rate on housing. Operating loans were terrible at this time, causing many small businesses and farmers to sell out. You see the big red arrow down at the bottom? I call this the times that we were spoiled. This is just coming out of the housing bust when things just went haywire. Interest rates were close to zero for a very long period of time, causing some of this inflation that we're seeing now. Now that inflation has gotten so high, interest rates are being raised by the Fed, trying to slow this down and get things back to normal. This next slide does a good example of explaining it all. If you look at the big blue arrow pointing down, that shows what happens when an interest rate is cut. It causes stronger economic growth, inflation moves at a faster rate, and it weakens the U.S. dollar. On the right, when you see an interest rate hike, it slows down economic growth, which slows down inflation, which provides for a stronger U.S. dollar. In world news for the week, we're going to touch on 2 highlights here. Mexico intends to proceed with a GMO corn ban. I'm going to read something out of Reuters here. It says Mexico is considering direct agreements with farmers in the U.S., Argentina, and Brazil to secure non-GMO yellow corn imports, the country's deputy agriculture minister said, adding that the 2024 ban on GMO corn would not be amended. Deputy agriculture minister in Mexico is on track to have its U.S. corn imports for yellow corn, used primarily for livestock feed, when the ban comes into effect in 2024 via increased domestic production. The 2020 decree by the Mexican president aims to phase out GMO corn and the herbicide glyphosate by 2024. Supporters say GMO seeds can contaminate Mexico's age-old native varieties and point to research showing adverse effects of glyphosate. Folks, if this goes through, that could be tough for U.S. farmers who export a lot of their corn down into Mexico. In other world news, drought continues to spread worldwide. Looking at rivers drying up in 4 countries, Argentina, China, and Germany have major rivers that are drying up just like the Mississippi River is here, causing shipping slowdowns, stoppage, and other concerns. We want to thank you for tuning in to In the Loop Weekend Ag Talk, brought to you by Alphen Insurance Agency. We hope you have a great weekend. Don't forget to like and follow us on Facebook and share us so your friends can find out about us. Also, send us a message with your email and we'll keep you up to date on all things crop insurance and agriculture. Remember, make mental health a priority at your home and at your farming operations. Make time for yourself, and most importantly, make time for those around you who may need help or need someone to talk to. And give us a call. We'll come to you so you can focus on family and farming. Thanks for tuning in again.